Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome.
I have the great opportunity of interviewing all of the men from the Community Safety Coalition who represents the Wilson Gray YMCA, the Compass Collaborative, Hartford Communities That Cares, and Blue Hills Civic Association. This evening, I have the pleasure of having an intimate interview with the men who do the work, the men who are in the community, the men who get it done up close and personal. So this is something that is well needed, and so we're going to jump right in. I have the opportunity of having Kelvin LoveJoy of Blue Hills Civic Association. Thank you, Kelvin, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Francine. I appreciate being here.
Yes, thank you, Kelvin. We have Andrew Woods, the director and founder of Hartford Communities That Cares.
Thanks, Francine. Glad to be here.
Okay. And we have a stellar guest, Daniel Palmer, this evening, one of the mentees of all of the men who will be talking to us a little bit later. And hello, Donald. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing?
All right. Thank you for joining us. And we have the infamous Brother Carl Hardrick.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's great to be here.
Yes, from the Wilson Gray YMCA. And we have Dean Jones from Compass Youth Collaborative, who is Director of Crisis Response. Thank you all for joining us. Hello, good evening this evening, Dean.
Good evening, good evening.
Okay, so we are gonna just dive right in, because this conversation, as we all know right now with the energy, the culture that's going on right now in the world, we know this is a much needed conversation. So we're gonna dive right in with Brother Kelvin LoveJoy of Blue Hills Civic Association. Kelvin, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about who and what it is that Blue Hills Civic Association stands for, and what it is exactly that they do in their in the community, and why it's so important for you?
Well, thank you, Francine, for the opportunity. Blue Hills Civic Association is 57 years old in terms of operation. A lot of our work, of course, is based in youth development, but we have multi-generational programming as well, as we run the North End Senior Center. But a large part of our work, again, is based in working with our young people, and especially preparing them for the workforce, preparing them for the challenges that are out there in the community. You know, today we actually operate as BHCA, Building Hartford through Community Action, and started in Blue Hills, and now we're spreading, if you will, across North Hartford to continue this great work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelvin. So Andrew Woods, the founder and executive director of Hartford Communities That Cares, thank you for joining us this evening. Can you please share with the community a little bit about Hartford Communities That Cares?
Sure. Primarily, three programs that we operate out of HCTC. But we got started in 1998 at Lewis Fox Middle School, primarily working with young people in the 7th and 8th grade, a mentoring program, a youth leadership development program. And that actually morphed into HCTC as we know it today. And so currently that same initiative that got
The host has unmuted all participants. Audio now unmuted. Amoni Spears has...
Hello. So we also have the pleasure of having with us, again, like I said, Brother Carl Hardrick. of the Wilson Gray YMCA Greater Hartford. Brother Carl Hardrick, can you tell the people a little bit about the work you do as the ambassador at the Wilson Gray YMCA? He has to unmute. Hello, Brother Hardrick.
He's on mute.
Brother Carl. Just 1 second. Looks like we're having a little difficulty with muting here, Brother Carl. Brother Carl?
A lot that we do.
Okay, Brother Carl, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. So again, for those, you were muted, Brother Carl. You had to get unmuted. So thank you. Like you said, you're Brother Carl, BC before computers, correct? So, so I'm glad we got you unmuted. So Brother Carl, can you please tell us as an ambassador about the work that you do at the Wilson Gray YMCA and why it's so important to you?
It's important because as we begin to build a community, when we look at crime and we look at solutions, we look at those that commit crime, why would we go to Yale to talk about someone and how to solve the crime problem in Hartford? Certainly we would get those out of jail that have committed crime and begin to talk to them. It's the same thing with things that happen in the community in reference to gang violence, started with the breakdown of the family. So we talk to those that have committed, because we believe that if you're going to solve a problem, you have to go to those that's creating the problem. And that's what I always did. Went to those individuals that were responsible for crime, that were responsible for poor education, that's responsible for poor parenting, and asked, how can we affect your lives? Okay. So as ambassador YMCA, when the Y was being built, we had experience. Our experience was up at Camp Woodstock, where we were bringing kids, and we noticed the difference in terms of getting kids out of the community and how they came back in the community.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Carl. So, Dean of Compass Youth Collaborative, can you please tell us a little bit about what it is that you do at Compass Youth Collaborative and what the organization stands for?
So the organization Compass Youth Collaborative has been around for 21 years. They started off as the South End Night Riders, as a drop-in center in the South End of Hartford. They have now spread into 3 schools in Hartford and expanding, and also have the part of the program that I'm a part of, the Peace Builders program, where we do all intervention, and we're dealing with young people between the ages of 13 and 19 years old. And the jobs of the interveners are to definitely get in between the mix of whatever's happening in their lives and help them recreate and reestablish themselves so they can operate in the success of who they are, so that we can pull out their strengths and allow them to be resilient.
Okay. So thank you, Dean. So this evening, we have the pleasure of having the interveners. These men intervene in the community. They work directly with the community because the community trusts these men. And they also have boots, as they say, boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. These are the men that are in the community doing the work. So this is why I said it's up close with the interveners this evening. So we're going to start with you, Brother Kelvin LoveJoy. Can you please explain to us what is the definition of a community intervener and exactly who are the interveners and what does it take to do this type of work?
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Francine. It's a large question. I'll say that, but I'll do my best, and with the help of my brothers, we can find a good answer. You know, when we talk about community interveners, we're talking about one who intervenes, of course, in the community. Webster explains that to intervene means to come in between, to prevent or to alter a result or a course of events. And so when we talk about a community intervener, you know, we're looking at certain types of events that happen in our community. When we talk about the overwhelming number of conditions that we face in terms of individuals and family members that live in our community, especially around violence, especially around helping young people to develop. It is the community interveners that step in and, you know, to use a phrase, they stand in the gap in the face of challenges and the needs of families. You also asked, you know, what does it take to be a community intervener? I would use these words. It takes a strong mind. It takes a strong spirit. It takes patience, trust, the ability to build relationships. It takes courage. And lastly, Ms. Francine, it takes faith. It does.
Wow, this is exactly, listen, we just got started and I'm excited, okay? Now that's the type of answer. This is the information, and this is exactly what our community needs. This is the work that you do, but this is what people need to hear, how important the work is that you do, how intimate, how you're up and close and personal. So I thank you for that answer. Thank you, Brother Calvin Lovejoy. Dean Jones, can you please give us an example of an outcome when you've had to intervene in the community in a situation? What was the outcome like?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a real time outcome. Me and Brother Carl, we was at the an event. It was probably about 300-400 young people, and it was live, and the music was happening, and the young people were bouncing around. Some was playing basketball, but then you seen some agitators in the corner looking like they were trying to do something to someone, and instantly our antennas went up, and we approached the young brothers and sisters like, what's going on? We were able to get through to them at that particular time because we had the respect of dealing with them from the community and also dealing with their brothers, knowing their parents, and they respect the work that we were doing. We were then later on that night able to get them home safely. And then we also, to follow up with that, we met at the Y with both groups of young ladies who carried on a little bit more of the issue that night. And we were able to break bread with them and bring their parents in and talk to them and get things settled. And it all came back to exactly what Brother Lovejoy said. The relationship amongst them was broken down, and the faith they had in each other was broken down. So we were able to reestablish that. And when they left, that trust was there. So that was like one of the greatest, you know, that's a good example of understanding and doing the work as an intervener, because at the moment you have to have your antennas on when you're out here doing this work, and you're looking for persons who may be uptight at that particular moment. So we're just out here doing the work.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Thank you so much. So my next question is for Andrew Woods. Andrew, you and your organization were the first ones to start a hospital-based violence prevention program in the state of Connecticut. Can you tell us about that program and how it got started and why there's such a need for that type of work?
In 2004, there was a lot of gunplay among middle schools, kids at Fox Middle primarily, and then in entire North End of Hartford. And oftentimes when the gunplay would result in someone being shot or injured, or even in some cases expired because of the gunshot, they would go to obviously the St. Francis Hospital. Hospital would go into lockdown, and folks couldn't get access to their loved ones. And there was also a lot of chaos in many respects and a lot of volatility outside of the hospital. Brother Kyle and I got wind of that, and we struck up a partnership with Trinity St. Francis Hospital and said, hey, listen, anytime an individual comes into this hospital, give us a call, and we will get down there to make sure that we respond and not only support the families, but also make sure that with the hospital, we make sure that families and young people get access to their loved ones in a timely fashion to where everyone gets their needs met. At the same time, we were listening out for signs of retaliation or individuals who wanted to respond and react to it, and to get ahead of that as well. So that was in 2004. And yes, we were the first in the state to actually start a HVIP, hospital-based violence intervention program, but also we were the 6th in the nation to do so. Currently, there are over 40 of us that operate these types of programs across the nation. Since that time, up until last week, we have actually responded to over 900 fatal and non-fatal shootings, including stabbings and blunt force trauma incidents that this crisis response team has been able to provide support for our families, the hospital, and other folks in our community. And so basically it operates 24/7, 375 days, 365 days a year. And we're now being led by Larry Johnson, who we brought on a year ago to actually lead and take the mantle from both myself and Brother Kyle in terms of leading these efforts. Under Larry's leadership, he has actually responded to and supported over 90 individuals since July 1 of this year in terms of hospital-based violence intervention work here in the city of Hartford, specifically at St. Francis Hospital. And so that's pretty much some of the history related to HVIPs. Okay. And then there's other questions that you have in terms of what we're doing nationally as well. But I'll leave it at that for now. That's fine. Okay,
Andrew, thank you very much. I have a people are excited about this, your response, Andrew. I have a quick question. Someone would like to know, how many people have you served thus far? And what is National doing to support the local hospital-based prevention programs?
Sure. So as I mentioned, it's been over 900 individuals or families that we've already served so far based on our responses to in support of families that have been impacted by violence. Our national organization is called the HAVI, the Hospital Violence Intervention Initiative, or I'm sorry, Health Alliance for Violence Intervention, used to be called the National Network of Hospital-Based Violence Intervention Programs. And what they provide for us is technical assistance. We have our conferences, much like other folks do. We have our mentor hospitals. Our two mentor hospitals is actually in Milwaukee and in Denver, Colorado, because those are some of the folks who have been the forerunners of some of this work, who have really refined the way that we do our work. Also, the National Hobby provides policy guidance to us to where we can engage our lawmakers on how we can begin to design policies and practices to support this kind of work. And they provide training for frontline workers. And so that's something also when we start talking about the Brother Cow Institute later, we'll talk about the kind of training that's available for individuals that we are bringing into the mix that want to do this kind of work on behalf of their communities.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Woods. Brother Carl.
Yes.
You have close relationships in this community. You grew up in Hartford's North End and Bellevue Square. What is it that made you dedicate your life to this type of work and to this community?
I think a lot has to do with my family and also the extended family. When you look at what's happening today, and we look at how we came up, there was always someone supporting us. And if we went wrong, they were always putting us in check. So we grew up with a strong family. We wasn't rich money-wise, but we were rich spiritual-wise because we had each other back. So because of that kind of situation that someone would always chest us when we going wrong, and we're going to do something or steal something, someone like, where you going? And you had to respect that individual. So growing up in that environment, when I came back to the community, I was looking at, there was a breakdown in the family. And Steve and Magnificent 20s, Los Salitos, Ghetto Brothers, Savage Nomads, 20 Love was creating their own family. And when you create your own family, then the things that you do, you have a tendency to fall on the negative side without the positive side. So when I look at my experience, there were more Black males in the community. You had the Elks Club, you had the Masonries, you had those organizations, those people were always giving back. And I said to myself, we need to go back to what made us strong. And as people began to move into the suburbs, you didn't have that base to keep people in check. So what happened was I took what I have learned, what made us together, and began to institute that into the groups that I was working with. You know, if you're going to create that family, then what are the things you need to make it right? That means I had to spend more time engaging them in their behavior. And in engaging in that behavior, they began to believe in me. if I said to Steve, I'm gonna work with y'all, they call me 4 o'clock in the morning, they expect me to be there. So if I'm getting the call, they're in trouble because I said, if you have any trouble, call me. Well, I had no idea it was gonna be 4 a.m., but it was, and I had to respond. So based on that responding, they said, well, we believe in Brother Kyle because whatever we are asking him to do, he's always there for us. So it's kind of a trade-off. I'm there for you. Now, what are the things that you want to do that I can give you to get you off that negative line to talk about the positive things that you need to do? So given that faith, whether it was bringing them to the table, and when they were about to fight, I said, look, let's take it to the table before you take it to the street. And that's what we were able to do. 25 of their boys came to the table, 25 of the other group came to the table, and have that discussion. So based on that, able to do that, that gave me input. So at that point, I began to be the person that you would call on if you were in trouble, and that I would be there for you. So it's that engagement into the community that made a difference in my life, not the resource. And I always say this, give me a bad program with good people, we'll make it work.
All right.
A good program with bad people, it ain't gonna work.
Okay, Brother Carl. And so just basically after what you just said, that just leads right into the next question, Brother Carl. So can you talk about the program that led you to the relationships that you have with these men sitting right here next to you in each one of these organizations? Can you speak about those how you became the mentor and they became the mentees?
Well, I knew I needed help. So if I was going to get it, I had to call out people that was committing the crime. So I had to put the time in on them. So, I mean, and I knew them and they knew the work that I do. And I said, look, man, you know, I know your pockets is bulging with that kind of money. You're really entrepreneurs, but you're selling the wrong product. And the question is, how do we flip that? You know what I mean? I said, I need help in the street. And so I can go to the suites and talk about what's needed. I need brothers like you. And I seen the input they have, even though they might have doing wrong thing, but their heart was in the community. They were just doing the wrong thing in the community. It was a matter of straightening that out. And so as I began to touch base with them, they had resources and people that I couldn't reach. And I always tell people, it's not what people doing, but who do people call on when they in trouble? And if they call on those individuals, if they drug dealers, then I need to talk to them. And talking to them, then if I can change their behavior, they can influence people that I can't. And so that's how I was able to get them, because they certainly had some resources that were needed and certainly were doing some things that wasn't needed. And it was a matter of changing those outcomes around so it becomes positive, rather than be negative.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Carl. Can I ask you one more question, Brother Carl? Would you mind? Okay. Brother Carl, our mayor, Luke Bronin, just recently announced he's creating a broader vision of public safety, a program that will work directly with civilians and the police, building a team that takes time, and that will be done with care. What will the roles of the interveners be in this community safety coalition? What role will you all play in that?
I think you look at the experience that we have, and I always tell people, if you want to know what I'm doing, then ask the people I'm doing it for, and you'll get the answer. In other words, where's your receipts? And when you're bringing people on, you can't bring people on without talking to the people that's out there 24 hours a day, twice on Sunday. This is not an easy job. And those people, and a lot of times what happens in situations, people think this work is easy, and it's really not. You gotta believe that in order to change lives, I believe that everybody can change. And the day you stop changing is the day that you stop breathing. So some people and some kids we have to walk away from. The most important thing is the engagement that you have in the community. If you're not willing to put that time in, and you think bringing a program on that you haven't engaged, you don't know who's doing what, the community don't know you, how are you going to get on and knock on somebody's door when they don't know who you are? You're not going to get the right answers. So I always say to people, what makes Hartford work is the engagement and the history that you have that can carry over. If you don't have that history, it makes it very difficult for you to get the answer.
Okay.
One of the things we know, and Dean know this, Andrew know this, when the city is in trouble, who they call on? They call on people that they know that's out there doing the work. So if you're starting something, then you need to call the people out there that's doing the work. Don't go to Yale. Go to those that just stepped out of jail. They can tell you how to solve the problem.
Thank you, Brother Carl. And that's why we're here this evening with the interveners up close for a personal discussion about how we can support our community and the work that you all do. And Andrew.
Yep.
Okay. I have a question for you. So again, like we said, Mayor Luke is starting this new initiative in regards to community safety. Can you please tell me, you know, how is it that you feel would be, what type of work do you see the interveners working directly or closely with the mayor? How can you support this initiative? How do you feel the Community Safety Coalition can support this initiative?
Well, I think it's two things. One is that we already have folks at the table with some of the work that the mayor and City Hall is doing related to that. Brother Kyle, LoveJoy, Dean, Larry Johnson, our team is already there and involved with some of the initiatives that are coming out of City Hall. So that's number one, is that we have always responded to the call from our city, from our residents, from anyone who would ask us to be a part of the solutions to dealing with this issue. Going back to what Brother Kyle, though, mentioned is that if you're going to be launching a program, you clearly should not be overlooking and going around individuals who have committed the kind of time into this. Brother Kyle has taught me one of the greatest lessons out of doing this work. Years ago, Nelton Court was the last housing project in the city of Hartford to be torn down. It was also at the time the most violent. And I'll never forget a call that we went to a person's home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and literally bullets was flying that night. Brother Kyle and I drove up to the house that night, and basically the folks recognized two things, Brother Kyle's truck and then Brother Kyle's silhouette when he got out the truck. And that's when the individuals stopped firing the bullets because they recognized that was Brother Kyle. We were going to visit a grandmother who would also in turn make sure that we connected to her son, her grandson, that can help us deal with some of the issues out there in the street. But the great lesson here was this, was that intergenerationally, Brother Kyle had established relationships with folks going back to the 1960s, families for 3, 4, 5 generations. And what that told me was this, is that if you're going to create a program, any kind of program dealing with this kind of work in the city of Hartford, you better have individuals who have no problem at all stepping into some of these neighborhoods. You better have some folks who understand and know who these families are and who their mothers are, their grandparents are, and you name it, and the whole like. Because our lives depend on exactly that. We do not step out into our neighborhoods 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or respond to these instances of violence. We do it having the confidence that there are actually individuals out there that most folks are afraid of. Most folks don't want to engage. But because we have the confidence that we built the rapport with them, that ensures our safety. And for the young men and women that we bring into this line of work, we also teach them about the value of respecting and building rapport with community. And so any new program that comes online, absent folks who are doing this kind of work, you're actually putting people at great risk. And so my advice would be that the mayor or anyone else who wants to create this kind of dynamic or this kind of program really needs to pay close attention to exactly the risk that is involved when you're trying to put people out here in the streets to engage folks that you haven't built rapport with.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. So with that said, I would like to address this question to the entire panel. So what is it that makes the community turn to you? What is it that makes them believe in you, the interveners? What is it?
I just think it's the work that you do that people see that you're doing, and you're not afraid to step into any situation.
Okay.
It has a lot to do with Dean has seen us. It could be a fight. We'll break it up. You know, now some people not gonna like it, but at the end of the day, they say, well, we glad you broke that fight up because I was losing. So
It sounds like trust is the word.
yeah,
here.
right.
Trust
Right.
is the key
You
word.
know,
Sounds
so,
like trust.
you know, and we tell them straight up because they know we out there 24 hours a day, twice on Sunday. And they can call on us, and we're going to be there for them. Resources, if they need a job, we'll go out our way to get the job. They have problems in school, we'll go into school and solve it. Teachers call us because they're saying, well, who can break up this situation? Call Dean, call Brother Kyle, call Andrew, because they know this community, and the community know them. And they know when we come in there, everybody running towards us. Hey, can you do this? Can you get me a job? Can you help me? I'm afraid of so-and-so. And if they got beef and they say, look, so-and-so is carrying a gun, he's after me, Brother Kyle, can you talk to them? And we'll go right up to the door and say, what's going on?
Okay.
Give you one incident that happened. There was a young man that didn't quite fit into Nelton Court, wanted to fit in there, wasn't quite the avenue. And when he was at Weaver, he would get beat up going up the stairs, and he would get beat up going down the stairs. Well, he decided to get a gun because he was tired of getting beat up. And he was bringing it to school. Everybody heard about the principal. Stringer knew about it. And Stringer called me and said, Brother Kyle, you got to get that gun because that boy is dangerous. We don't know what's going to happen. So I called him. Andrew called the parents. We called the gun, the other people. And he kept saying, well, I gave it to someone else. And someone else gave it to someone else. And finally, I said, look, man, tell me where the gun is. Well, he was afraid because he had took the gun. He knew where the drug dealers was hiding the gun. If they knew that I got the gun from him, I said, I'm not going to tell you who got the gun. Just tell me where it is. And he told me, he said, it's in Kenny Park, underneath the barrel, near a tennis court. And I said, go up there. And there it was, a .357 Magnum. And I turned it over to the Hartford police.
And this
So
is
that's
the type
kind
of work.
trust. And in order to do that, people got to trust you.
Yes.
Because something that would never happen.
Yes. And that's exactly what I was talking about when I said, it seems like the key element here is trust.
Yeah.
The community trusts you. People trust you where they don't have that type of relationship with the police. And so with that said, I'd like to ask Brother Kelvin LoveJoy of Blue Hill Civic Association. You've been an intervener in the Hartford community for, 30 plus years? Can you speak to your experience as a Black man, a mentee of Brother Carl, and the work you're currently doing?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Francine, and thank you. It doesn't feel like almost 30 years, but it went by fast. I'm quick to tell everyone, Andrew and I, we got over 2 decades working together, as he mentioned, coming out of Fox Middle School, and when we first launched the Safe Nights.
That's right.
And some of these pictures back here behind us actually represent some of that work. But, my experience has been one of really staying on the front line. Really, most of my career has been working in after-school settings. And, those after-school settings then take you right into the community. And many a times we have found situations that, started in the community, spilled over into school, and then wound up in the after-school program where we did a whole lot of our work to defuse and to engage the young people to get them back on the right track. But, it's been this front line type of work. And there's a saying that really I learned from Andrew, and I love to use it, about keeping the ball in play. No matter where we are or who we're working with, it's always about this operation of engagement and standing in the gap, as I mentioned earlier. And I learned that from watching Brother Carl. I learned that from working with Brother Andrew. I learned that from seeing the development of a Dean Jones. And you know, before you know it, 10, 20, 30 years has gone by. What it has done for me, and I think I'll sum it up this way, Francine, you know, I developed a method of engagement. And my method of engagement that fits into the team is that we work with the youth to connect with the family to influence the community.
Okay, thank you, Brother Kelvin Lovejoy. Thank you. So my next question is for Dean Jones. Like Kelvin said, to work with young men like yourself, Dean. Dean, can you share a little bit about your relationship and Brother Carl, being a mentee of Brother Carl and the work that you're doing right now as a director of crisis response and how that has inspired you?
I've been around Brother Carl for, I don't know, 12 years old, 10 years old.
Yeah, about that.
And Brother Carl, his son had asthma and I had asthma. So we had, that was in common, right? Growing up when we was younger. And I remember being 18 years old, getting a phone call from Brother Carl saying, meet me anywhere. I said, okay, meet me at Dunkin' Donuts in East Hartford. And he met me at Dunkin' Donuts in East Hartford, and he was like, Dean, man, there's a lot of stuff going on, brother. You need to change your life. You know, we need you out here. And I guess the conversation was because he also mentored my mother as well. So at the time, I really wasn't ready, but those words resonated. So when I got out of jail in 2005, right, I ran into Brother Carl and I met Mr. Woods. And they latched on to me, gave me an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I remember Mr. Woods telling me, he said, Dean, you got to get 15 young brothers, hold on to those brothers, develop those brothers, and just work with them. And from them 15 young brothers, it's like I'm in 15,000 lives now, you know? So looking at how to work now has taken me and brought me to having my master's degree in social work from UConn, you know, following those footsteps and being on top of my game. And I always have these conversations with Brother Carl. He's like my wisdom box, you know, always asking, what's next for me, Brother Carl? What do you think I should do? You know, he's always, you know, giving me little gems and telling me to stay the course and things are only going to get better. And he has never lied. You know, now I'm the director of a program where I started frontline staff with Mr. Woods now at Compass as a crisis response and community relations director. So it goes to show you from an 18-year-old young male who sat down with Brother Carl, who was causing a lot of the violence at the time, now is preventing the violence on the other end. And that's reform, that's true reentry in itself. And a lot of people question them, you know, it's a big question around reentry. Like, is it giving them a personal job or giving them an opportunity? And it's really, it is that's the small piece, but the reentry has to happen within. Mm-hmm. And I had a safety net. I had the Kelvin Lovejoy growing up, watching him rap, bringing us up to New York with the Urban League. I had the Andrew Woods who hired me, grooming me, told me how to do the work. I had the Brother Carls who latched on to me and navigated my route. So, and now I'm at Compass and I have the, you know, the Jackies is helping me. And so my line of people, my connections, that's reentry. That's what keeps me right now. And then my mother has always been the backbone of my wife and, you know, my family. So I'm connected. I'm invested. So when I'm dealing with a young person as a intervener on the front line, I got to believe in their unbelief because Brother Carl did that for me. So in your unbelief comes belief because you have something to believe in. And that's the process of that.
I'm speechless. And that doesn't happen. Thank you. It's all right, Dean. Thank you. So I guess this is a great way to segue into our exciting news about the Brother Carl Institute. This is what Brother Carl Institute can do.
Yeah.
Andrew Woods,
Yep.
would you like to talk a little bit about the Brother Carl Institute and all of the exciting things that the Brother Carl Institute will be offering to the community?
Absolutely. We've always believed when you hear the stories of Dean Jones, Warren Hardy, Larry Johnson, and others who have been a part of our team and folks who have been on the front lines doing this work. When you look at the young men, all of us here today, there's really literally just a handful of people who do this work, always have been. And part of the reason for that is that it does require a great deal of time, intensity, commitment to do this work. And you really have to build community or build rapport with community. That does take a lot of time, et cetera. So consequently, people actually burn out with doing this work. People actually don't last long with doing this work. And they may do it for a few years and decide that, you know, it is not for me. And so that's why you always see just a few people like us doing this work. Henry Brown can't be here today. He's another, you know, advocate and strong leader out there doing the work that we do.
Yes, yes.
Shout out to our brother.
Right.
And so the whole notion of a Brother Carl Institute is really about building that bench. It's really about making sure that we do have a next cohort or a next bench lined up, or folks that can actually replace the Brother Carls, myself, and others to carry this work on. If we don't build that bench, we will find ourselves in this city at a place to where we will not have interveners such as the gentleman that you see here and some women that are doing some of this work. The city will be void of that. And so the whole notion of developing a Brother Carl Institute is really around training folks, just as Dean has been able to take advantage of those opportunities and others, to where they can use this and create a career path out of this work. And so maybe a year or so ago, there was a donor who was attracted to the notion of replicating Brother Carl. And it mirrored our entire interest in saying, hey, listen, we may be on that track now to really put this in place. And so with the help of folks, and I'll mention her name, she doesn't want it, Miss Joanne Price, he has been leading this effort and making sure that there are folks who are ready and lined up and willing to support this kind of work and to support the next line of Brother Carls who will be coming online. Now, I mentioned the Harvey, the Health Alliance for Violence Intervention. They are truly an organization, again, nationally that oversees the hospital-based violence intervention work we do. But they've actually established a training program that certifies individuals to do exactly what we do. That certification will actually lead folks to where they can even build third party, just like social workers with licensed clinical social work backgrounds. They can build Medicare, Medicaid, third party insurers like commercial, like Aetna, Cigna, you name it, et cetera. These are not, you know, this is not easy work, as Brother Carl pointed out, but it is a professionalized job that folks may not understand or think that it is. Just because individuals who may do this work best are those who have had lived experiences, meaning they were out there once, maybe engaged in some of the gunplay or engaged with some of the lifestyle that put them at risk or others. It doesn't mean that these individuals aren't committed and want to get the training necessary to do this work. The Brother Carl Institute will offer exactly that. And so this summer, even this summer, we're looking at bringing on some folks to even start tinkering with some of this in some respects. But also by the fall or the fall of this year, we hope that we will have this thing fully operationalized in terms of making sure that there are pieces in place to bring on that cohort of individuals who will in fact be the next generation of Brother Carls. And so that's pretty much a great deal of it. But I do want to add this piece, Francine. We didn't talk about trauma and why this work. And we got the nods in the room here.
Yes.
That people often say, well, you guys are just doing intervention work. And they often don't understand that this is really prevention, intervention, and treatment and recovery work.
All in one.
And so all in one. And so give you an example. When a young person has been chronically exposed to violence or trauma in our communities or all kinds of other adversities, the impact that trauma has on them impacts their schooling, their ability to retain information in school, their ability to function and do things, even in workforce development programs to be successful. Therefore, they actually do very poorly if they haven't dealt with or we do not connect them to the services that will help them deal with the trauma or the exposure of the trauma so that they can be effective on the job market, in school, and in life, and with relationships, and so forth. So when we intervene with individuals, we're really looking at exactly how we can provide them with the support, clinical, as well as wraparound services, medical services that will get them on a path of recovery. If an individual does not deal with, or we cannot get them connected to those services, they actually find themselves at greater risk of being re-victimized. They find themselves at greater risk to also being perpetrators of some of the violence that we see playing out in urban America, and so forth. And so we know exactly what our aim is here. Our aim is really about making sure, when Dean talks about that 500, 300 folks that they had to intervene with, it was really about making sure folks got access to caring adults who can reduce and interrupt some of that violence, at the same time connect them to services that can help them deal with some of those unmet trauma needs that, if dealt with, they can find themselves on a path of recovery and then again become very successful in life. And we got countless examples of young men and women that we've worked with who are highly successful in almost every area you can imagine because of our interventions and the support that we provide for our community. So I didn't want to leave without saying that. Didn't want to.
Thank you, Andrew. And we needed to hear that, and people need to hear that. So I thank you. So right now, with that said, I would love to have the opportunity of having one of HCTC's mentees, Mr. Donald Palmer, am I correct, with us this evening.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Donald, how are you? I'm so glad you could join us. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your story and your journey and working in the programs with Mr. Wood, Brother Carl, Dean, Kelvin, LoveJoy, and what that has done for you and how that kept you on the straight and narrow.
It goes way, way, way back. I could go back to first starting off with Brother LoveJoy with the newspapers. I remember that. Yeah.
That's right.
And with Brother Carl and Mr. Woods coming around in the community with Stomp the Violence, and also with Dean doing the basketball tournaments with Peace Builder. But the thing that kept me like on a straight and narrow was, I could say, my mother, because she's a single parent. That's a single parent. Like, I looked at her for like support. I never really had a male support until these guys. Matter of fact, I just want to thank these guys for their community service, what they did in the communities for all these years. Honestly, because growing up, I wasn't like, it wasn't easy. I grew up, I grew up on Green Street, where like back then it was like a real tough area. It's a lot I could say, but it's like what like kept me on the straight and narrow was just seeing one of my close friends. His name is Jakeem Telly. I was about 14 at the time. 2008, the summer of 2008, a lot of violence. Jakeem was murdered. And one thing I always told myself is like, I don't want to die young. And seeing like one of my close friends right there in the casket at the age of 15 laying there, it was real like tough for me to like get over. Like to this day, like that's what kept me going. That's what kept me going forward to get my bachelor's degree, going on to get my master's degree. Because I want to live and learn, honestly.
What are you studying, Donald?
At first, honestly, I graduated with my business administration degree at Bethune-Cookman in my bachelor degree. Then I stumbled across, because I was a victim of a violent crime, and I just thought to myself, I need I went through these therapy sessions, because with Mr. Woods, after like the incident happened, and they brought UConn clinical mental health counselors to my house, and I did virtual conversations with them, and I understand like I needed this. Like I told myself I didn't need it, needed this, but like just talking to the guy, just opening to him, then this something like this clicked to my mind one morning. Like I just started looking up mental health counseling. Then I stumbled across clinical mental health counseling, which I'm about to go for at Bay Path University.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, brother.
Congratulations. So this is exactly what the Brother Carl Institute, this is what the interveners, this is what Compass Youth Collaborative, Wilson Gray, YMCA, Hartford Communities That Cares, Blue Hill Civic Association, this is the result of your work.
And mind you, like it was in the community with these guys, with these men, it was always the little things, you know, the little things in the community. Honestly, it's just like you won't just see their face one time. You'll see their face consistently, like coming into the community. I remember like the first workshop I went to, I'm coming from Green Street. Green Street, they gave me money to catch the Blue Hills bus to Tower and Blue Hills. So I came up there, it was just consistent. So I was just like, I like this, you know, because it's like, it's taking me away from that environment of Green Street. Because it wasn't always positive. You know, it was some positive, but it was a lot of negative. So it was just like seeing like their face, that I knew like these are the men I could trust. Even with Brother Carl and Mr. Woods bringing up Camp Woodstock, it wasn't just like they're taking a group of men, young men, like they just hand select. They taking every young man from every neighborhood that you could be beefing in the streets, but when you come to Camp Woodstock, you're family.
All right.
Next thing you know, you having a whole conversation with this person that you thought you would be like having problems with. You know what I'm saying? Seeing like the other side, like bonding with each other. So it was just crazy. It was a lot of workshops. So, and I think that like that helped me honestly growing up.
Okay. Thank you, and good luck on your future endeavors. And I look forward to seeing you back here in Hartford and on this panel the next time as our next intervener. Thank you, Dal.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Brother LoveJoy, with our current state and policing going on right now, I mean, there's so much, so many questions I'd like to ask you in regards to that, but I'm going to stick to this one right now. What is your viewpoint on policing and the situation that is going on currently here in the United States?
Again, another deep question, Ms. Francine. But you know, for this, I have to put on my BHCA organizing hat, right?
Yes.
And you know, so when I do that, I can then look from a viewpoint of macro and micro, right? And at this current condition, and you know, in the micro, I might see the police officer that killed George Floyd, and you know, that's individual on individual. You know, one individual took another individual's life. That's on the micro. But at the macro level, it's really about the systemic need that has been on the neck of our community, and especially of Black and brown males around the country in communities of color for over 4 centuries. And that need has really choked the life out of families. That systemic need has choked the life out of education, out of our culture, out of our economics. And being an intervener in this time is really about getting that knee off of the neck of our community so that our family, our youth can breathe. I think that's a good viewpoint.
I think that's a very good viewpoint. Very good. Wow. This is such a great panel, such a great discussion. I mean, I know we have a limited time, but I'm looking forward to the next discussion. And so I am going to ask my last question of the evening to Brother Carl. Brother Carl, what is next for the Community Safety Coalition and the interveners? What is next?
I think as we start, it's like we look at violence in the neighborhood. And as it affects the neighborhood, we look at violence in the city. And as it affects the city, we look at violence in the state, and we look at it in the country. So as we began to have our successes there, we always ask ourselves what works and why. And again, people make situations. So how do we take what we do and bring it into an area that having the same problem? And it's easy to do that when you have experience of doing it. And you have people like Don that can back that up. So I think we need to grow. And as we grow, we need to bring younger people behind us. I think one of the downfalls of the civil rights movement was we didn't go back and pick up a lot of youth. And because we didn't do that, you know, we asked to sit in the restaurant, but we didn't ask to own it.
All right.
So we need to take an economic point of view, because if we're asking young people to give up the drugs that they're selling negative, how do we get them to expose to something that's positive? And again, they're really entrepreneurs, they're just selling the wrong product. So how do we send them to the pharmacist school so they can become pharmacists and sell the right thing that can help people, whether those things that are killing people?
Okay.
And that's a collective effort. And we all might be down different lanes, but we all need to communicate collectively together. If I have success, there's people that I can't deal with, I have to turn over to Dean. There's people that Dean can't turn over, they have to turn over to me. Or we have to turn to LoveJoy, or we have to turn to Andrew. We have to turn to people that we're not gonna help everybody, but certainly the group we have, we can spin off each other. We're never gonna give away. Maybe it's some give up, or maybe it's somebody that I have to back away from and say, look, maybe you need to talk to Mr. Woods. You know what I mean? Because he has a different, or you need to talk to Dean. And that's the way we operate. Some people would say, I can't stand Dean. I can't stand Brother Kyle. Well, send him over there. LoveJoy, send him over there.
We got it.
Yeah, we got
Somebody on the panel could take care
Yeah,
of it.
somebody gonna give. Send him to
We're gonna intervene on this.
send him to Don.
That's right.
Yeah. So we always got somebody, we know that somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that can reach. And that's what happened. And it's a matter of, and so what we want to do, and me and Dean talk about this all the time, because we have done this with Bob Woodson, where we had to have people that just couldn't adjust in Hartford, but they were managed to adjust in Philadelphia, or they were managed to adjust in DC. And DC would send kids this way that they were having difficulty with. So a lot of times we have to take kids to be successful out of that environment that they're in and expose them to something else. And I think the key thing is exposure. To see what other people are doing that's in the same situation they're in and how successful they've been, and begin to bring that back to Hartford.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Carl. And I would also be remiss if I did not mention Reverend Henry Brown, who also is an intervener here in Hartford, Connecticut, and who would have been part of this panel. How unfortunately he had a death in his family, so he could not join the panel this evening. But Reverend Henry Brown is the founder of Mothers United Against Violence and is a very active intervener in the community in support of all of the trauma, the violence that goes on. He offers full support under the umbrella of Mothers United Against Violence. And again, we send our condolences this evening to him and his family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to thank all of you for this wonderful, just outstanding panel discussion, much needed. I look forward to the next session. If anybody has any questions, they can contact the Community Safety Coalition on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, or at communitysafetycoalition@gmail.com. And either of these organizations, Community Compass Youth Collaborative, Wilson Gray YMCA, Hartford Communities That Care, and Blue Hill Civic Association. You can find them on Facebook and also online. If you have any questions, feel free to please reach out to any of us. Again, thank you all for this wonderful, wonderful discussion. I would like to open it up to see if anybody else has any more questions. To be honest with you, all of the responses this evening that we've received, everyone has said, great job, applause. Thank you for the work you're doing. I mean, you have answered the questions, I mean, before they could even ask the questions. And so, to be quite honest, we have got a stream of comments just saying, thank you for the work that you do. Keep up the great work. God bless you for all that you do for our community. Again, thank yous, applause, thumbs up. I mean, the responses have been wonderful and overwhelming. And if you would like to see this, Francine Live, you can go on Facebook to the Community Safety Coalition and also Francine Austin page. And you can also look on Kelvin LoveJoy's page, Andrew Wood, Dean Jones, and Brother Carl was before computers. So we won't see it on his page. But please note that we will send up a follow-up, and this video can be viewed also on social media, and the video will also be available on the Community Safety Coalition's YouTube channel. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Great job.
Thank you, Francine. Great job.
Great job, Francine.
You all are wonderful. You all are wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Proud
you.
of the work you do.
Definitely got to do a part 2, Mr. Woods.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
2 weeks or next month.